Ben, you talk about the 3 steps that America is being destroyed in or by. Let's talk about those 3 steps. What are they, and how is that destroying America?
So in order to understand what exactly is being destroyed, we have to understand what is supposed to unite us, or what originally brought America together. And that was 3 things: a shared philosophy, a shared culture, and a shared history. The philosophy of the United States was embodied in the Declaration of Independence, the idea that all men are created equal, endowed by that creator with certain inalienable rights, and that government was instituted in order to protect those rights, a limited government with limited powers designed not to invade those rights. That was the shared creedal philosophy of the United States. We were all supposed to hold that in common. That doesn't mean that it was perfectly applied. Obviously, it was not. But the history of the United States, the other shared feature of the United States, is a history in which we try to strive for the fulfillment of those founding principles, and we do better at that over time, increasingly spreading the application of those principles to more and more people, not just at home, but also abroad, and that is the glory of the United States. And then we have a shared culture, a culture that values social institutions like the family, that values church, that values a spirit of entrepreneurialism and adventure. And all 3 of those elements of America that used to unify us, the philosophy, the history, and the culture, all 3 of those are being destroyed right now, actively undermined by a group of people I've called disintegrationists. The disintegrationist philosophy believes that America is not in fact free, that America is merely racist and evil, and that all of the founding ideals are actually backward, that all men should not be equal before the law, that we have to determine via group identity whether people are treated in a particular way or not, that the government should not be limited in any way, that rights don't spring from God and don't pre-exist government. The same group of people believe that American history is the unending story of evil and oppression, this sort of the 1619 Project view of America, now being taught in your public schools. And then finally, they believe that the culture of America is wrong. The churches and families are obstacles to ultimate change in the United States and can be dispensed with safely. Government should override them, in fact, and that a culture of adventure and entrepreneurialism, a culture that says that you're owed nothing except the adventure itself, that is a bad culture and needs to be overthrown by a culture of entitlement.
I mean, I don't think anybody could really argue what you have just described that's happening to America. You talked about the disintegrationists, but who are these people? And exactly where are they coming from, and what is their motivation in wanting to destroy America? I mean, do we have names? Do we have places? I guess the question, who the heck are these folks?
There's a long history. There's a long history of people in the United States believing that the creedal founding philosophy of the United States was not true. I mean, there were secessionists prior to the Civil War and during the Civil War who believed that basically America was just an agglomeration of various interest groups, and therefore that when those interest groups no longer agreed, then some could go their separate ways. There are progressives in the early 20th century who believed that rights don't spring from God, they come from government, and that government should be empowered to simply give people what they need, and that people at the top of government should simply use whatever power was at their disposal in order to do so. There are people today, I would say that there are many members of the Black Lives Matter movement who believe that the United States was founded in cruelty and evil, and that the only way to fight that cruelty and evil is to overthrow all these systems of oppression that are contained in the Constitution of the United States, that basic American freedoms, things we hold dear like freedom of speech or freedom to own property, that these things are actually the threat to the possibility of a utopian future.
If these people were able to take power, getting elected, whether it's to the highest offices or just take over cities and counties, what happens to America? What happens to the life that we're kind of used to living? A life of going to school, going to church, going shopping, owning our homes, taking care of our lawns. I mean, that's a life that many Americans kind of strive for. What happens to that, Ben, if these people really do get power?
It falls apart. I mean, no aspect of your life will be left untouched. And you're seeing this right now. Every area of culture has been made political. Where you shop has been made political. Every element of the entertainment you consume has been made political. Your kid's educational system has been made political. Your church has been made political. And the power of government has been used to impose from above a lot of these policies. And the power of culture has been used from below in order to effectuate change inside your own community. This sort of stuff is deeply dangerous. There used to be this sort of tolerance for dissent in the United States that even the left used to pay lip service to, and that's completely gone. When you talk about the people taking over government and doing damage, I mean, the Democrats have already pledged at this point to do away with the Senate filibuster and then presumably just add states willy-nilly to the United States Senate, forever shifting the balance of power in the United States toward Democrats, and then using 51 votes to ram through whatever radical agenda they want top down, overriding Americans' rights, overriding federalism. What you're going to see as a result is communities drawing further apart, not coming together.
I mean, many people argue that Joe Biden has not thoroughly embraced such a radical doctrine, but it does appear that we're headed toward an election in which there is a huge crossroads for the future. Why would the election of Joe Biden push this agenda along, or would it?
It would. I mean, Joe Biden is merely a stand-in for the radical left. Everybody acknowledges that at this point. His selection of Kamala Harris underscores that. I mean, the reality is that, unfortunately, Joe Biden is unlikely to serve 2 terms, which means that Kamala Harris, if he were either elected or reelected, would likely become president of the United States. This is a person who has paid lip service to the 1619 Project. This is a person who personally has approved bailing out rioters and looters in places like Minneapolis. But by the way, Joe Biden himself has embraced a lot of this language, talking about how systemic racism is the story of the United States. Now, Biden does pay lip service to a lot of the founding principles, but he doesn't actually adhere to any of those because he believes that the United States requires fundamental change in the same way that Barack Obama used to play this game. He did actually during the DNC, saying he stood up for the Constitution, but the only thing that the Constitution and the Declaration stand for is the ability of the mob with 51 votes to basically do whatever they want to override individual rights.
Ben, there's a big difference between the slogan, Black Lives Matter, which I think it's something everybody can agree with, but that's not the same as the organization, Black Lives Matter. And I think a lot of big multinational corporations who give millions of dollars to the organization, do they have any clue what they're giving to?
So I doubt that they do. I think that most of them are simply trying to buy their way out of bad press coverage. I think that a lot of these corporations that are paying grifters like Robin DiAngelo or Ibram Kendi to do anti-racism training are basically just trying to buy their way out of legal liability. If they get sued, they can always say, well, we undertook these diversity initiatives, so clearly there's no corporate responsibility for whatever happened at our company. And they also understand that the left is the squeakiest wheel, so they get the grease. The phrase Black Lives Matter suffers from semantic overload. It means one of 3 things. 1, the inarguable proposition that Black Lives Matter. Everyone agrees, so it's not controversial. 2, the actual organization, which is a Marxist radical organization. And 3, the proposition that America is systemically racist and evil and that systems of American racism have to be overthrown or you are complicit in racism. And what the left has done is they've played this Mott and Bailey game where if you attack either of the latter 2 definitions, which are the more commonly used definitions of Black Lives Matter, then they say, well, then you must not agree that Black people matter. It's like, no, what you're doing is you're playing a game. You're being deliberately vague and refusing to actually define your terms so we can have a clear conversation specifically so you can claim that I believe something I don't and you can claim that you believe something that you don't.
We only have about 30 seconds left, Ben, but I want to get your take on the fact that riots, looting going on all over the country, is it beginning to backfire on the left and specifically on the Democrats, that people are beginning to say, hey, these people are pretty quiet about all this stuff until they sort of have to speak out?
Well, that's right. And it's not just that they're quiet about it until they have to speak out. Joe Biden's speech this week on violence was absolutely egregious. He name-checked white supremacists and white nationalists twice in the speech. He name-checked quote-unquote right-wing militias 3 times in the speech. He name-checked police violence twice in the speech. At no point did he mention either Antifa or Black Lives Matter, both of which are the actual sources of the violence in America's major cities. Why? Because he's afraid of fracturing his coalition.
Ben, great to have you here. The book is How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps. It is a bestseller already for obvious reasons. Ben, thanks for joining us. Happy to have you with us.